From Oshkosh Community Media Services, this is Oshkosh City Cable 10 and broadcast on 101.9 FM WOCT Oshkosh. Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report is your preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda and an update from your Oshkosh City Manager. Your hosts, Emily Makowski of Oshkosh Community Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
And thank you for joining us for your City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Emily Makowski, and I'm sitting here with your City Manager, Mark Roloff. Thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Great to be here, Emily.
And now, first off, as usual, we'll open up the show with some updates around the city that we've been talking about top of mind, and then we'll take a quick break and then come back and talk about the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, September 10th at 6. Give us a little preview of what's to come next week. So first off on our agenda here, let's talk about the Emerald Ash Borer, the EAB. We talked about it briefly last time we spoke, and there was a meeting coming up. They had the meeting last week. It was a huge turnout, a lot of people there, and I had the chance to talk with Kim Miller from the UW Extension, who spoke at the event. So we can take a look and see what she had to say about the Emerald Ash Borer now in Winnebago County.
The emerald ash borer is a big deal because it's now in Winnebago County, and it has killed millions of trees across the U.S. to date. And as it spreads across Wisconsin, it's going to continue to kill ash trees, and it affects not only our neighborhoods but our native forests too.
And so as you can see here, there's a before picture of Belvedere Drive and then an after.
Yeah, Toledo, Ohio, look in 3 years what happened there, and I think that was the main point that they were bringing up, that in a short 3-year period that this could happen. And I think a lot of people are starting to learn about what's going on. I was really impressed by the numbers that you said that you saw that were there.
Yeah, they had to bring in more chairs for the people. So obviously it's something that people are thinking about and worried about. And even, I know as you said, even if you don't have an ash tree, it's still a big issue.
Right, they showed the life cycle, and the real key there is that these the larvae can live in the wood for 1 to 2 years before anything happens. It sounds like what they were telling people is that even though they've just discovered it, that doesn't mean they just showed up. Right. That means they've been here for a while and we're just now noticing them. But they can pupate in the wood or bark for, what does it say, take 1 to 2 years for the larvae to develop. So they're likely already here. Right. And I think the point is that with their pupating in the wood or bark, that means that their advice about don't transport wood.
Yeah, and that's the key to keeping it from spreading, I think, as well.
Right, and so that's going to be something that we're going to be on the lookout for. Our interest is that we have a lot of terrace trees. They showed that picture of the street in Toledo, Ohio. Unfortunately, that's likely going to happen to us here. So what we can do is try to forestall it as much as we can. If we can stop it for a little while, we can certainly keep it from impacting us too quickly, too negatively, and also from spreading. The whole idea is try to spread it, because look at the devastating damage. I mean, that's a summer day and it looks like it's fall with the trees there. They've lost everything, and it's such a tragedy that beautiful streets like that can get damaged. So it's really up to us to prevent the spread of it, even though we may not directly benefit from it. Everyone will benefit by addressing this issue. So don't transport wood. Listen to all the PSAs that will be coming out from the DNR, from the UW Extension offices, because we all have a role in trying to prevent the spread of it.
Right. So yeah, just keep that top of mind. Don't move your wood, and do everything you can to keep preventing the spreading from happening. Up next, let's talk about the Allerton Drive railroad condition we've got going on. When we were talking before our interview right now, you were saying there's really two issues, a long-term and a short-term issue. Can you tell us a little bit more about those? Sure.
The short-term issue really has to do with the residents who are immediately impacted by this. And the graphic we have up here shows Allerton Drive, which is just to the upper part of the screen with the railroad, which shows the cars just laying there, just waiting to be loaded up. And that's that's what the issue is here. So what we want to do is try to get them to work with the residents to at least explain, the circumstances under which they're doing this. They have not given us a lot of really good answers there. They've explained it, and I think they've adequately explained the hows and whys behind what they're doing, but what they can do to minimize these things, that's the problem. And the way they explained it to us, and they're going to be putting out some informational brochures or things we can share with the residents, but the scheduled pickup for them, they start in Horicon early in the morning, and the last stop is typically Oshkosh. If there's not a lot of pickups for the day, they can get to Oshkosh earlier. But when they have a lot of pickups, and they start in Horicon and kind of make a loop through this 8-county area, starting in Dodge County and going down towards Portage and then whipping their way back up to Oshkosh, if they have light deliveries, they get here earlier. Oshkosh Corp is always done by 4 o'clock, and in some cases they're actually done by noon. But if they have a heavy load pickup elsewhere, they get here late, and that's what's resulting in these late night pickups. And as you saw from the video or from the graphic there, they are right in the folks' backyard. The residents, I think, have been very understanding. Oshkosh Corp starts at 7 in the morning, they're done at noon or 4 o'clock. They're not even complaining about that, and they certainly could. What they're complaining about is that the pickups don't happen until late at night, and that car is full. It gets jerked, and loud noises to pull it away, and loud noises to put a new car back there. That's what the neighbors are talking about. So
right in their backyard like that.
So the short term is explaining better to the residents and to give them an idea of when the circumstances under which they'll be there. But also for us, that's not enough for me. And State Representative Gordon Hintz has met with me, and he's looking into what the state can do, because some of this track is actually on lease to the railroad from the state. The state owns a portion of this rail area, and is there anything the state can do to maybe enforce it?
Okay, and I understand you were saying that there was a chance of moving that location to another spot. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, and that's the long-term solution, and I think we've made some progress there. We've identified a site, and this graphic shows Oakwood Road. You can see that on the graphic, and there's the pond that we built a few years ago, and north of the track is where the Miles Kimball warehouse is, so you kind of get an idea. On the pond side, we've got adequate space that between the railroad right-of-way and the road that we have that we've used to access the pond, we think we have plenty of room there. The railroad's taken a stronger look at that, and they've asked if we could extend it, and we're absolutely willing to do that. So we've identified a place. So hopefully we can work towards that.
Okay, and I read your memo to council about this issue. It really sounds like your long-term solution that you just described is going to come down to money. So what can you tell us about that?
It always comes down to money,
Okay.
and the railroad believes that they don't have any responsibility for that. I disagree with that, but we have to figure that out. Hopefully we can negotiate something that's reasonable for everybody. For our part, the city, we're willing to pursue grants that we might be eligible for, and our city staff is looking for ways in which we can identify some grants. To the degree that any tax increment dollars for the industrial park areas are eligible, I think this will benefit the entire industrial park, not just Oshkosh Corp. Long term, it's a loading area that could benefit everybody. Even if you don't have rail frontage, if you want to get goods delivered or picked up, maybe that's an option. So we think there's value, so we may be able to use some tax increment money. But I still believe that even if we can provide a limited amount of money, that the railroad still has some responsibility, and we're going to pursue that with the state and see if they can agree with us and maybe work in concert. That's really what we're trying to do, is do something. So our goal is, if we can get that all done, that if we can identify the money issues and get them worked out, that we can get this scheduled for construction in 2014.
Okay, great. Good to know. So then moving on, talking about some wayfinding signage. Earlier this year, council had asked you to develop some kind of a plan to help move traffic down into the central city area of Oshkosh. So what can you tell us about that and what was talked about? You had a little council meeting or a workshop about that?
The council had a workshop a couple months ago, and the idea was to get traffic from 41 to the central city and back out.
Right.
And as we talked about that, signage became a big issue, because a lot of older areas, it's very difficult to get a lot of right of way. So having this perfect road is probably a pretty tall order. But signage is a lot more flexible, and we do have some awkward ways to get downtown because of the river and because of the roads and the railroads to get twists. So signage seemed to be the big thing going on. So we've got some signs that were put in several years ago, and for the most part I've heard good things about these signs. But the key that I've learned over the years is that you really need consistency so that wherever the visitor is, that once they recognize a sign, you want them to have that consistent experience so that as they're progressing from the outer areas of the city into the interior, that they are still looking for those commonly familiar signs.
Right, and I know you said not even only from the roadways, but even coming from the river, just to have that image of the sign in your mind so that when you do see it, it sticks out to you, not only from the roads, but from the river as well.
The Riverwalk, the Convention and Visitors Bureau is very interested in that because they know boating community is going to be another group of people that will be looking. And right now, they don't know where they're allowed to park their boats right now because there's nothing to tell them. So they don't know if it's private docks, public docks, how long you can park. So we need to educate the boaters, and the best way to do that is to provide some signage. And then the Business Improvement District, the BID, is also interested. So instead of having 3 different types of signage, try to consolidate, try to standardize, and then work together to make these signage areas familiar to everybody, and a little bit of consistency. And then once they become a pedestrian and they're walking, you want to make that available. So the BID, the Business Improvement District, is interested in the downtown, of course. And they would like to see a first wave of signs right immediately outside the convention center, which makes perfect sense, and then out at Opera House Square. And the one other thing that they pointed out, when you think about it, you got to think about the visitor. That's what we're doing this for, because we know where a lot of destinations are because we live locally, but visitors don't necessarily. So the idea is to give them the ability to identify places like Opera House Square, because we'll tell somebody, oh, you go to Opera House Square, you make a left. Where's Opera House Square?
Right.
So they also asked, we need a sign that identifies Opera House Square as a city park. So little things like that. So we had a very good first meeting, and Ray Maurer, our Parks Director, is going to be working with the Business Improvement District, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and try to develop the first phase of signage that has some consistency, so that it doesn't matter if you're just getting into the city from Highway 41 or you're walking on Main Street, you have the same common experience. So that's what I think you're going to see down the road.
Excellent. And speaking of different changes and things changing and different solutions that are happening, we want to remind our viewers again about the Time Warner conversion. Time Warner cable conversion. We talked about it last time. It's getting closer. It's about a week now out, so it's coming up on September 11th. So you can go to our website at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org for frequently asked questions. And really, the way it affects you, it depends on your equipment. So to really understand how this is going to affect you come September 11th, you got to go and find out what kind of equipment you have and how the changes are going to be taking place. And then also, we were talking before the interview as well, just to clarify on the DirecTV and Uverse, and just there's been a little bit of confusion with that. So could you maybe clear a few things up for us, Mark?
Sure. One thing is, some people have asked about channels 2 and 10 being local channels.
Local channels.
They really aren't. They're considered cable channels. I know that doesn't make sense to some folks, and I understand that, but they are not available. These channels 2 and 10 are not currently available on Uverse or DirecTV or any of those satellite. It's only available on Time Warner, and that's not a commercial for Time Warner. If you're watching us right now, you're either watching us on Time Warner or online. You're not watching us on the other providers. We're trying to work through that. It's going to cost us some money to do that because we're required to front that money. So until such time, if you're using Time Warner, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to continue to use it. So look at the PSAs, but also you got to use YouTube. You got to use our OCMS site. You got to look at our website if you want to keep watching some of these shows.
And you are able to view live meetings and live tapings of meetings on our website as well. So You still get the same effect if you do happen to switch without realizing it, or if you don't have Time Warner Cable and want to see the council meetings, you're always able to see them online as well.
Hopefully people still want to watch us.
Yes. Moving on, something that's really current right now, kids are going back to school. There's the buses, there's a new schedule. So really quickly, what does that mean with these buses' new schedule?
Well, the new schedules mean that the peak times when kids are driving to school or taking the buses to school, that's changed. It's a little later in the morning, so and it's actually a little later in the afternoon. So you may not see them as much in the morning if you're an early riser, but you may see them later in the day. So always be on the lookout for what for buses, for kids walking or kids driving, because the peak volume for schools changed. And then just basic safety issues. When buses are stopping, you have to stop. That's state law. Allow the kids to get off the bus. And even when they get off the bus, kids dart in and out of traffic. Be on the lookout for them, because that's just basic safety.
Right.
Every parent wants their kids safe. Every resident wants to be a safe driver. So just look out for those things. Be aware. That's
it. All right, so now it is time for one of my favorite parts of your city manager's report, the question mark. So let's take a look and see what the question is this week. So this week, question pertaining to back to school a little bit is, does the city have enough crossing guards?
Well, there was a little advertisement for crossing guards because we were short. Fortunately, we filled all the school locations that were identified, but we still have some vacancies available for makeup or substitute guards. So if you are interested in being a crossing guard, you may not have a specific site, but certainly look at our website. You can apply for jobs, any job with the city, but crossing guards, we're looking for the substitutes right now. So check our website and maybe you can be a crossing guard for us.
Excellent. And so now it's time for us to take a little break. When we come back, we'll go over the City Council meeting agenda for coming up this Tuesday on September 10th at 6 p.m. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm City Manager Mark Roloff, and I have an important message for Time Warner Cable viewers of Oshkosh Community Media Services. For over 25 years, Oshkosh Community Media has kept Oshkosh residents informed, educated, and engaged with the Oshkosh community and local government. For this reason, we feel it is important that viewers know that on September 11th, Time Warner Cable will be converting CATV2 and City Cable 10 to digital. So what does this mean for CATV2 and City Cable 10 viewers after September 11th? If you have an older TV, CATV2 and City Cable 10 will disappear. To continue receiving our channels, you will need to contact Time Warner Cable for a digital adapter. If you have a digital cable box, nothing will change and the channels will remain on 2 and 10. If you have a newer flat screen TV, you can do a channel scan to restore our channels. For details on Time Warner Cable's digital conversion, we encourage you to visit our website, OshkoshCommunityMedia.org, and click on the Frequently Asked Questions guide.
Hello again, and thank you for joining us on your City Manager's Report. Now it's that time of the show that we can go over the City Council meeting agenda for this Tuesday, September 10th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on City Cable 10 or online at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. So Mark, the first thing on the agenda, item number 1 here, has to do with cold mix asphalt paving. Can you explain the cold mix asphalt paving program to us a little bit here?
Sure. What we're doing here is we're doing special assessments to charge property owners for cold mix versus major reconstruction with a concrete street.
Okay.
The reason we do cold mix is because when we do a concrete street, we're really replacing everything underneath, because a concrete street can last for 25 to 40 years or even more. The asphalt has a life of only 8 to 10 years, so if the underlying utilities are in relatively decent shape, they haven't reached the end of their life, we don't want to put a concrete street and then tear it up in 10 years.
Exactly.
So we buy ourselves a little time, 8 to 15 years or so, and then when the street is deteriorating, at that point, the utilities are also ready to go, and then we can do it. It's much more efficient to do it this way.
Okay, so really what the cold mix is just a layer of asphalt over the existing asphalt to buy it some life?
Yeah, we clean it up a little bit. It has a good life, 8 to 15 years. We scrape away a little bit of it and put some back, but it's a shorter term solution. The quality is great, but it's a limited life.
Excellent. And then moving on to item number 6 here, we've got having to do with obtaining site closure of a lot on Marion Road for the Rivers 2 development. So how much is this actual, right here it's just kind of to see how much that we're going to have to do to clean it up. That doesn't have anything to do with the actual cleaning it up.
Right. This is $120,000 just for the environmental engineering for it. That's
Okay.
not even the cleanup itself. Cleanup of sites along the river is historically been a real challenge because they're old industrial sites. They need to be cleaned up. So there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross with the regulatory requirements we have whenever you're dealing with these old industrial sites. So what we're doing here is the Plan Commission just discussed this a couple days ago. The idea is that we want to develop the second phase of this residential apartment complex, but before we can turn it over to the developer, we need to clean up the site because a developer could go anywhere, get a nice clean site, and not have to worry about it. So we need to give that developer the assurance that this site has been cleaned up to satisfactory standards so that they can develop it without having some problems down the road.
Okay, and so this item is only to identify what needs to be done. How much does it cost to actually do the actual cleanup?
We're probably looking at, with everything, probably about $800,000. So $120,000 just for the engineering service is pretty steep, but that's because of all the regulatory requirements. But we're looking at $800,000 in total.
Okay. And then moving on to item number 17 here, authorized police department grant for alcohol impaired driving enforcement. So where exactly does this grant come from?
This is Federal Department of Justice dollars that are used to assist local police departments in doing a little more intensive enforcement of DUI laws, driving under the influence. And the whole idea is that give the police department a little more opportunity to target areas that they feel from a local standpoint need to be looked at. We've done things all over the place. We've done it for the downtown pub crawl. We've done it randomly, just a complete surprise, or other special events, Country USA, other events that may tend to have high frequency of alcohol drinking, but also just plain old Saturday night. They would just want to make sure people are abiding by the law. It's really to keep people safe, because if we can pull somebody over and who's been drinking under the influence or driving under the influence, we can maybe prevent a horrible accident from occurring.
And do you feel that this impacts discouraging people from unsafe drinking?
I certainly hope so. I think the results are bearing that out. I think the statistics show that we're getting less people driving under the influence, and we're just trying to discourage. And you know, the Tavern League, the local bars, they will arrange for a cab ride home for you. And as the bumper sticker says, a taxi ride is cheaper than a DUI. And I think people, you know, if they can let their friends help them with that, it'll be a lot safer.
Exactly. And then moving on to item number 22, approve appointments to museum board. Now this was for an opening on the museum board, which is now filled, I'm understanding?
Yeah, these are actually two appointments that are going to be this week.
Yes.
So we had 2 vacancies on the museum board.
Really?
That just need to get filled.
Okay, and you told me earlier that there are always openings on these boards, not only the museum board, but other different planning boards and that kind of thing. So how can you apply to be on a board?
That's the easy part. Yeah, the city website is a great resource. You just say, I want to apply for board and commissions. There's board and commissions under government. I would recommend that you apply even if there's not a vacancy, because then when a vacancy occurs, you know, the mayor and the council are the ones who will ultimately make the appointment. They're looking for people who are interested, not just when a vacancy occurs, but they're
Right.
genuinely interested in serving on a board or commission. So let us know what board or commission you're interested in, and the mayor and the council can take a look at it, and you can really help the city. You provide great guidance to staff and to council on a whole variety of issues.
Great. Seems easy enough, exactly on the website there. So And then moving on, lastly, looking just at the future agenda items, there's a few bullets here about the budget workshop. The next budget workshop is coming up on September 20th, is that correct?
25th.
25th, okay. So I understand you've already had a couple meetings, so what can you tell us about what's been going on so far with those?
Well, so far we've had 2 workshops, one in July, one in August, that set the table for where we are.
Okay.
And we're going to have some, serious budget issues that we're going to be facing as we approach 2014. Limited revenue sources that are available, and we have costs that are going up. As we reported at one of our workshops, our health insurance costs are going to be going up 20%. So employees do pay into that, but the city share goes up 20%, not just the employee share. So we all share in that burden. Those are some of the issues that are coming into play. As a result of that, we have about a $65 million budget, but we're projecting that we could have a deficit that we're going to have to close of about $2.8 million to $3 million. And that's pretty sizable. So what we're going to have to do is say, okay, how are we going to close that gap? We have to balance the budget. That's what we're required by law to do, and we will do it. But the council now is more aware of it. So we got them in the loop earlier on our previous workshops. Our third workshop on September 25th is really geared towards capital improvements.
Right.
So and that's really a function of our borrowing. We can only really do as much construction as our borrowing capacity allows, and we are kind of under a self-imposed limit, but it's an appropriate limit for us, so we have to be careful about that.
Excellent. And the next budget meeting is coming up on September 25th. What time is that at?
That's going to be at 5:30. It's going
Okay.
to be in the council chambers, and then once the budget comes out, there'll be other budget workshops that we'll be doing. But pay attention to OCMS and just see what workshops are out there in the coming weeks and whatnot. So you're going to see a lot of discussion about budget. It's going to be a tough year in 2014, but I think for the most part, the public will be better educated on it. The council, I believe, certainly is, and that's our goal, to educate the public better so they understand the impacts of what budget cuts might be coming up and what our budget priorities are going to be for the coming year.
Excellent, and we look forward to hearing more about that too as the budget workshops continue. So that's going to wrap it up for today on our City Manager's Report. Thank you again for joining us today, Mark.
Oh, glad to.
And again, the City Council meeting is this Tuesday, September 10th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on City Cable 10 or on our website, oshkoshcommunitymedia.org. You can also tune into the radio station, 101.9 WOCT. Make sure to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for any programming or government updates. And don't forget, if you have a question for our Question Mark segment, you can email that to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.